We're just going to review chapter 43 and then we're going to start chapter 42. So chapter 43 spoke about fear. Why is fear important in a relationship, specifically our relationship towards God? But in general, our relationship with God is the highest term of relationship and the ultimate relationship, but we can imitate it in all our relationships. So why is fear important in a relationship?
It's protection in a way, because we're supposed to, we need to have a fear of losing this relationship, and it leads us to do things that are positive and nourish it.
Very good. So you said something important. It leads us to do something positive and nourish it. Exactly. Fear leads you to action, leads you to wanting to connect to that person, and fear of disconnecting, right? We learned that, Dorit is joining us. Hi. So you're not in person today.
I'm sad, but no, I tried to. I had no car, and I couldn't wait around, so I'm home. Je vais tout prendre la maison.
Okay. All right. So we were saying how fear in a relationship is important before love. And why? Because it will lead us to do action for that person. It will lead us to being afraid of separating from that person. It says there was a rabbi who told his students, "May your fear of God be like the fear of human beings." And his students were surprised. What do you mean? And he was saying, when you're in front of a human being, you're afraid to do something bad, right? So you should have that feeling of God always being there in your presence, just like you would not act a certain way in front of a human being. You should also have that fear that God is always there, even if you don't see him. We also learned how emunah comes from the word training, right? To train. Because in order to have emunah, in order to have this fear and faith in God, you need to train your brain. Your brain naturally does not fear God. So you need to train it every day by learning concept, by meditating, by thinking about it. And that's how you feel connected. And that's how you can feel that fear towards God. Chapter 43 begins with a pasuk in the Torah that says, okay, I'm going to read it inside and then I'll explain it to you. So, Vehine al yira tatazu shehi likim mitzvasav yisbarach bepchina sur meirav yasetav. Concerning this level of fear, which is for the fulfillment of his commandment in both areas, Amru im ein yira ein chachma. Our sages say, if there is no fear, there is no wisdom. Okay, so there's a pasuk in the Torah that says, if there is no fear, there is no wisdom. And then somewhere else it says, if there's no wisdom, there is no fear. So over here, our sages and the Tanya tries to understand what's supposed to come first. Does fear come first, which will lead to wisdom? Or does wisdom come first, which will lead to fear? You can't, if they're both contradicting each other. If you don't have fear, then you won't have wisdom. But if you don't have wisdom, you won't have fear. So which one are you supposed to have first?
They come together?
Do they come together? No. One has to lead. No, they do not come together. One has to lead to the other. So the Tanya gives a very beautiful explanation and says that this represents two levels of fears. Okay, in this chapter, we're going to learn about two levels of fears and two levels of love. Remember, these are things we can attain, right? The whole Tanya is based on Kikar Velecha Davar Me'aid, that it's close to us. This is something we can attain. So even if fear and love of God can seem very far from you, the Tanya tells us, no, we can attain it. What's the lower level? The lower level is probably one that we can attain. The lower level is when you look at the world, you think of creation. Hi, Eliza. You think of creation, you think of the whole entire world, the beauty, and how God fills up the whole world, is part of everything. This should bring you to an awe and fear of God. This is the lower level. Why is it the lower level? Because it's limited to what your eyes see, right? It's all about what you experience, so your existence is still there. It's not a completely nullification. The lower level is called Yira Tata. Yira Tata, it's in Hebrew, is a level of fear where you contemplate about God's beauty, about the world, about the greatness, about God filling the whole world, and you're filled with this fear and this feeling of awe that makes you somehow nullified, but not completely, because you still feel like you exist, since you're experiencing it through the world, through your eyes, and through the world, through creation. But it's important, in order to get to eventually the second level, to start with this level. So it's a very good thing to have, to be able to think of God, of the world, of creation, of nature, and how God fills the whole world, is a very good feeling of fear. The higher level, though, the second level, is called, let me just find the name. The second level is called Yira Ilah. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says, Ezehu Chacham Haroeh es Hanolad. Who is the wise one? Is someone who sees the future, or who sees the birth. Someone who can understand, even if he doesn't see it right now, he can understand the consequence of something, right? Of his action. And he can understand what happened before and what happened after. That is someone who is wise. Okay? So this second level of fear has to proceed with chachma, right? You remember the pasuk? It says, if there's no fear, there's no wisdom. That's the first level. If there's no fear, you first have to have fear in order to lead you to wisdom, which is to do Torah and mitzvot, because you want to connect to God. This is the first level of fear. Okay, you have to fear Him in order to have wisdom, in order to do Torah and mitzvot, in order to be connected to Him. The second level is, no, you need to have chachma first. You need to have, what is chachma? Chachma is the highest level of in the Sefirot. Let me show you. In the Sefirot, in this chart, chachma is the first one, okay? There's bina, but chachma is before. Chachma comes from the word koach ma. It's the strength of what? That means completely nullification. Is realizing that even before the world, forget about creation, before the world, God existed, and He's the one who created, and this greatness brings you to a healthy shame, to a level of completely nullified. You're not bound to your existence or to the existence of the world. You realize that He created it, He existed before, and it brings you to a complete level of shame. Okay, now we have to understand that every emotion that exists has a good side and a bad side. So shame normally is very negative. But over here, the Tanya writes shame. You have a shame, you feel ashamed in front of God's greatness. It's a healthy shame. It's a shame that makes you feel so small and so insignificant compared to God and to His greatness and His splendor and everything. Marie, tu avais une question?
Ah oui, juste comment il s'appelle celui-là. Tu l'as dit tout à l'heure, mais...
Alors, le deuxième niveau, the second level of fear is Yira Ilah. Okay?
Merci.
Yira Ilah. So there's Yira Tata, the lower level, how we experience it in this world, by looking at nature, by thinking about everything that is in this world and how God fills this whole world. Okay, it's very limited, but it's the first level. The second level precedes fear. It comes with chachma. You have to have wisdom first. You have to have this understanding of where it all began. Where creation, before creation exists, before this world was created. It's not linked to anything physical. It's much higher than that. It's much deeper. It brings you to a level of nullification, just like when you see a sun ray. Is there sun rays inside the sun?
No.
No, there's no sun rays inside the sun. The sun rays only exist once they go out of the sun, right? They only exist, we only see them and we can feel their heat, right? We can measure their light only when it's far away. Only in our world we can see it. But within the sun, there's no sun rays. This is the example that the Tanya and Chassidus uses all the time to explain how we exist within God. We're completely nullified. But we're only existing right now. We see each other, human beings, because we're like the sun rays. We're far from the sun, so we're a reflection of the sun. But within the sun, we don't exist. We're completely nullified. This is the level of fear. By understanding it, I'm saying it, but I don't understand it. By understanding that, a person can feel completely nullified, just like he is within the sun, within God's presence. It's very deep what I'm saying, so I'll give it time to.
Ça veut dire que c'est pour la lumière qu'on voit qu'on existe, s'il n'y a pas, on n'existe pas.
La lumière du soleil,
Ouais.
dans le soleil, est-ce qu'elle existe?
Uh-huh.
Non, elle n'existe pas. Alors, nous aussi, on est comme la lumière. Ici, on se sent comme si on existe, mais dans le soleil, dans Dieu, on n'existe pas. Alors, a person has to think about that and realize that really, we are nothing compared to God. We're completely nullified. We're just a sun ray. We're just a reflection of God in this world.
Okay, it's energy.
No, but we do exist. You feel it. It's just,
I feel
it's
it.
in the mind. You
In the
have
mind,
to,
yeah.
you have to realize this.
Okay, it's only energy. It's seulement l'énergie de Dieu.
We're a sun ray. We're a reflection of God. And yes, we do. We feel pain. We do exist. We're not saying we don't exist, but it's a mental work that we have to realize in order to inside feel completely nullified and not have no ego and that is the highest level of fear.
C'est juste un niveau au-dessus, mais c'est difficile à atteindre.
So it's higher to attain for sure because it takes bigger work. That's why we should try the first level. We're going to be very good. What happens? The Tanya continues to say that once you get to the level of fear, yira ilah, that level of fear where you're completely nullified, then the love comes. Okay, why do we start with love? Love is the first thing. Why is it important to start with love? Not love, with fear. Very interesting one I heard. I thought you guys might like it. There's in the Torah, it says that a man searches for a woman. It shouldn't be the opposite. A woman should never run after a man. It should be a man who searches for a woman. Why? Because in the spiritual world, man represents love. The love above of God. The love of God above searches for a woman. What does a woman represent according to Kabbalah? In Eishes Chayil, what does it say? A woman who fears God. It says Sheker Hachen veHevel Hayefi. The beauty and charm is a lie, but a woman who fears God, that is a woman who should be respected. A woman represents fear. God's love searches inside down here in this world for the woman, for that perfectly person who has a perfect fear of God, who's completely nullified, and therefore will give a gift of a great love, a sense of love that doesn't come from you, that's not selfish. Because real love normally is selfish. Love is a feeling that you exist, that you feel towards another person. It's a very selfish feeling. That's why for a relationship that is the truest relationship, which is our relationship towards God, it can only start with fear, because it can't start with something selfish. So we have to remove the selfish. We have to have that complete fear of God. Once we have that complete fear of God, a man, Hashem is going to search for that woman, is going to search for that person who has that complete fear, and give us that gift of a love that is the highest level of love, that is the love of pleasure, and it's a gift. It only comes through your work. Okay? That is the highest. There's also 2 levels of love. So that's the highest. The Tanya tells us the highest level of love is a love that's a gift from God. It's not a love that's related to you. It's a selfless love. It's a love that comes from God, that makes you want to cleave to Him, to be connected and never separated from Him. And it comes with pleasure too. So I thought it was interesting that how a man is compared to love and a woman is compared to fear. I don't know, I think that's a very...
I have never
It's
seen that
not how
before.
the world
Yeah.
functions. The world always, first of all,
Yes,
women are always
yeah.
running after men. I think that's a big lesson. And also, we're always running after love. When we understand that we don't run after love, love will come to us. We work on our fear and love will come. Sometimes we chase, there's a famous thing that there's a Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Olav Hashem, who said something very powerful. Till today it sticks to me. He says, don't run after your ambitions, let your ambitions run after you. Many times we chase things that we don't need to chase. We need to do a certain work, and that work we're avoiding by chasing our ambitions, by chasing love, or whatever it is that we're chasing. Do the internal work, and those things will chase you, will come after you. I think it's a very powerful lesson. Which reminds me, I actually forgot to say that my class is dedicated to the complete recovery of my grandmother, Ruchama Bat Chana. She's not feeling well. So I'm dedicating this class. When I prepared it, I was thinking about her and I forgot to mention it. My grandmother, who's in Israel, Ruchama Bat Chana, that she should have a complete recovery. So, yeah. So what were we saying? Yes. So this highest level of love...
Amen to that, Sterna. Amen.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear that. Amen.
Yeah, thank you. So we shouldn't chase love. Love will chase us, will come after us, is searching for us. God is searching to give us this love, this huge gift. He's searching for that heart that has that complete fear. And in order to reach that fear, we first have to start with the first fear. With that fear where we look at the world, we look at the creation, we understand that nothing is here by chance, that God feels every part of the world, that God created everything, that feeling, we start with that, and then eventually we can be led to the second level, which is understanding even past what our eyes can see, understanding the consequence of our action, that God existed before creation, that God will exist after creation, something even that goes above what our eyes and mind can understand. And that's Yira'Ilah. This fear should bring us complete nullification. And once we have that complete nullification, we can be filled with that love. God will give us that gift of love. What is the lower level of love? It's called Avat Olam. A love, you can either translate it eternal love, or you can translate it a love of the world. Someone who's passionate, the Tanya says that it's more dangerous to be a cold person without any feelings than to be a passionate person who loves worldly things and physical things and always running after materialistic thing because they love it, kind of like addicted people. That's better than someone who's cold and not loving. Why? Because that person who's passionate and loving could channel their love towards God. But for a person who doesn't have love within them, who's cold, who has no feelings, cannot have that feeling towards God either. Of course, they can create eventually. The Tanya tells us that through meditation and through work, through Chachma, Bina, and Das. You remember we learned that Das is what creates, right? Through thinking and contemplating on certain subjects, you need Das that will bring to action, will actually create feelings. So through that work, which is a much harder work, they can create love towards God. But it's much better for someone to be passionate and loving than to be cold and have no feelings. So what do? The lower level of love that comes from you, that's still selfish, right? Because it comes from you. It's a level of love of the world. You love things in the world. You're passionate. You're excited about the world. And what do? You channel your love towards God. You love food. So take this food, make sure it's kosher, make a bracha, elevate it. You love people, connect them, bring them to Torah. You love, you're passionate about music, make music about God, okay? So you take your passion, your love, and you channel it towards God. And eventually, those feelings that you had towards that physical thing will leave and will be completely channeled towards God. So that love is the lower level of love, but it's a very healthy love and it's a very good love to have. And of course, it comes after the fear. It says in the Tanya, it says though, that there was a, let me try to find the story. There was a man, it says Rabbi Elazar ben Dordia, he was sinful his whole life, and then he did tshuva not through fear, but through love of God. So it could happen sometimes that someone who does sins their whole life can have suddenly this love that comes right through the world, through understanding that this world was created by God, whatever it is but it came through love. And then he could do tshuva. It could happen sometimes. So it doesn't have to be always that fear precedes this love. Mm-hmm. It could happen sometimes that this love could lead you to do teshuva, to have the fear. But for the higher level of love, for the love that comes from God, that is connected to pleasure, that can only be followed by complete fear and nullification of yourself. You have to be an empty vessel in order to receive that gift of love. So let's just recap. There's two levels of fear. The first level of fear is very similar to the first level of love. What is it? It's a level of fear that's related to the world, to what your eyes see, what your eyes contemplate, how you understand the world, and how God is part of this world. This level of fear brings you to a level of nullification, but not completely, because you still feel like you exist, you still see the world, so there's still it's not a complete nullification. It's not like the sun ray inside the sun. The second level, Yira Ilah, is the level where you're completely nullified. You realize, whoa, God, like it's above God doesn't even need this world to exist. You realize that God existent is before. Ezehu chacham haroes hanolad. The wise man is the one who sees the future, or who understands the consequences of actions, who understand that there was a creator before who created, who sees the birth of of things. That's a much higher level of understanding. And that brings you to a feeling of shame, a feeling of chachma that precedes the fear. Chachma is the highest level of the, how do you call it, the sfirot. It's a level of bitul. Did you ever hear the word bitul? Bitul is complete nullification, is when someone doesn't feel like they exist. There's nothing, they're transparent. Transparency will lead to love. By being transparent, by realizing it's not about you, by letting go of your ego, of how you feel, and realizing there's something much bigger than that God is much bigger than anything you can imagine, then you can be gifted with this high level of love that brings you pleasure and that makes you want to be connected and one with God. This is only a gift that you get through the higher level of fear. The lower level of fear, the lower level of love, sorry. And remember, chachma is fear. Chachma is fear, right? It comes from nullification. And bina is love. I don't know why here chachma is not with gvura. It's supposed to be on the same one. I'm not sure why that happened. So love comes after the fear, and the lower level of love is that love that you have of anything that exists in the world, the love of the world, the love related to creation, to things you see, to physical things you see. That love has to be channeled towards God. A person who has passion has to channel his passion towards God. Through channeling his passion towards God, in the beginning, he's going to love food and love all these things, but when he channels it towards God, he won't care about pleasure anymore. My mother just messaged me that she's in the hospital. I really hope my grandmother's going to be okay. I just saw the message. Anyways, so through channeling your passion, your love you have for God, your love you have for the world towards God, eventually you won't care about pleasure. The lower level of love is not connected to pleasure. It's just the love that you have towards Hashem, that you want to be with Him, that you want to be connected, that you want to channel everything you have towards Him.
It's a bit of what I saw yesterday.
Exactly. Yesterday we went to a conclude.
S'appelle comment ta grand-maman?
Ma grand-maman Ruchama. Ruchama, ouais.
Ruchama, c'est joli ça.
Ouais. So the lower level of love. So yesterday it was a beautiful event. We went to where they finished writing a Sefer Torah, and people were dancing with the Torah and so happy and joyful and loving. It actually blows my mind how it's just a Sefer Torah and people are like they don't even realize what they're doing. I don't know if people realize what they're doing, that you're dancing with a manuscript and ink. And you're making such a big deal, but that means they realize somehow they're unconscious, subconscious, or maybe they're conscious. I don't know how much people are conscious about what they do. Sometimes it's a love. The Tanya actually says it, that this love is inside of us, and we just have to dig deep. How do we dig and find that love? Is by thinking about it and training our brain to realize, right? And that's how we can connect to that love. But that love is innate. It's inside of us. That love for God, it's within us. It's a lower level of God. We connect through creation, by connecting. Yesterday, by going to this event, it was a very physical event, right? You go, you listen to people speak, you eat some good food, you see people dance, You're dancing with your body, you're listening to music, okay? It's very, and suddenly this love came. I didn't even expect it. I didn't expect to experience anything, but this joy and love just came naturally like that, just by seeing people dance with the Sefer Torah. It just came. It's inside of us. So we experience this love through experiencing the world. In the beginning, we're going to be connected to the pleasures of the world, but once we remove that and we channel it towards God, we don't care about the pleasures of the world.
It felt like it was the joy of having done something beautiful for God.
Yeah.
Like making a Sefer Torah is that.
Yeah.
And it was the joy of seeing the result and kind of offering it to Hashem. That's what I felt.
It's exactly what it was. It's exactly, and I wonder if people realize.
Deep joy.
Yeah, it's a very deep joy that joy and love is very connected. When we have this love for Hashem, it's automatically will be connected to joy. They're very connected, and this love is within us. We just have to dig a little bit. The love that's the higher level, we can't have that. We can't experience that love that is a pleasurable love, that love that is ecstasy. The Tanya calls it ecstasy. That love will only come when we're completely transparent, completely empty, and that will be a gift from Hashem, who is searching, right? The man searching for the women, searching for that fear, complete, perfect fear. But that lower love is very close to us. And that we can experience it through experiencing the world. The material world, we can experience it. Through experiencing physical, anything physical, the Tanya tells us, any of our passion, anything we love, when we take that passion and we channel it towards God, we make it for God. That's how we experience love for Hashem. So you can, tzedakah is an example. You take your money that you love because it can buy you stuff, right? And you take it and you give it for tzedakah to help another person. That is channeling that love of the world. That's an example of how you can, in a concrete way, channel your love for whatever it is, shopping or whatever it is, towards something holy.
No, I want to hear about shopping. How I can connect it to God. Yeah,
when you shop for clothing for Shabbat,
you shop tzniut.
For tzniut, for Shabbat.
Yeah.
Or when I was saying when you give money, instead of shopping, you give that money that you could have shopped for towards tzedakah. It's channeling that love you have for shopping to someone else, so they can shop and they can,
So we can experience that kind of love.
We could experience that kind of love
in a small.
In a small scale.
Yeah, like temporary.
So that's why it's a work. Love and fear is constant work. It's a workout. Just like you have to train yourself every day. I've never heard of someone who said they worked out a week or a month and then they stopped working out. It was done. Love and fear is a constant work. A constant work. Always preceded by fear first and then love. But in some cases, again, it said that sometimes love can precede fear and could lead someone to do complete tshuva. But usually fear has to precede love. For a loving relationship to last, it has to be preceded by fear. And I think that's a huge lesson for our relationship, because God, again, I keep on repeating it, but God's relationship with human being is the ultimate and perfect relationship. You cannot have a fake relationship with God. You can't. You can have a fake relationship with a human being, but you cannot have a fake relationship with God. It has to be real. It has to be true. And by understanding what a true relationship with God is, you can understand what a true relationship with people are too. So with God, you have to have that fear, that bittul, that nullification, that awe, understand His greatness, that you're nothing in front of Him, and then that love is going to come, and then channel your love, the worldly love that you see around, that you experience through the world, channel it for Hashem. That too, in a human being, I find that the way that the world teaches us relationship, it's always preceded by love. Hi, Cheryl. Right?
Hi.
But here we see that a true relationship has to be preceded with fear, and it's a relationship that will last much greater than if it was preceded with love.
At the same time, is it okay if there is a sense of security because we have some sort of security with God in a sense that we know He's gonna love us no matter what. So there is also a sense of safety, of security in that love. Like we have a safe.
So what's your question?
A safe. Well, my question is, fear of losing Him is one thing, losing the relationship is one thing, but at the same time we know that the relationship will always be there because
so that's a
God.
good thing.
Yes.
That's very interesting what you said. So from His side, from Hashem's side towards us, we're never going to be disconnected. But from us towards God,
So
we could be disconnected. We could be disconnected.
The fear is a fear of our doing something to be disconnected.
Exactly. And we could feel that's why we have to work on our relationship. Because if we would always be connected, then there's no work to do.
Yeah.
The fact that God created this world and Adam was the first one, Adam and Chava, they did something to disconnect. They felt that disconnection, right? They had nothing to work for before. They were perfect in a perfect world. They had security, right? Their relationship with God was one. They were like the babies, like my father and mother will never leave me. But suddenly they did an Avera. They disconnected. They went against what God told them to do, and boom, they felt that disconnection. They felt that shame, and that fear exists now since their Avera, and we're trying to reconnect, to not have that disconnection anymore. So
any disconnection is from our side.
it's from our side, and that disconnection really exists, and it should not exist. It exists, and we have to make sure not to let it exist, because it could lead us to all the bad things that we see in this world. What is evil? It's that disconnection with God. What is anything bad that happens in this world is the disconnection to God, is the human being that feels disconnected with God. It can lead you to really bad things, to negative things. So we have to, fear and love is essential to our living a healthy life. So yes, you can think that, but you can think Hashem is never going to leave me, but I'm going to feel disconnected on my side. Yeah. I don't hear you, Dorit.
Yeah, that's strange.
Since I look Tanya, I need to learn how to be sad and fearful. That sucks.
How to be sad and fearful? No, not sad.
It's stuff that I don't know. Je sais pas avoir peur de Dieu, because for me it's still in an old way. But even if you're keeping saying it, I'm still having this resistance of fearing in a way of punishment.
So that's not the fear that's not the fear we're talking about. It's not the fear of punishment. It's the fear where you feel transparent, nullified, completely like nothing towards God. It's understanding how great He is and how nothing you are compared to God.
But this I do, but is it a good word to say that I'm fearing? Yeah, that is fearing?
That is a healthy fear. It's a healthy fear.
La définition de la peur dans notre langue n'est pas correcte, n'est pas la même.
Because I don't think French people have fear of God. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm not talking about all French people. It's just, but it says that languages, you can learn what people have, you know?
Même en anglais, je pense, dans nos langues autres que l'hébreu, la plupart, je suppose, le mot fear, le mot peur a une signification différente de ça.
Yeah, so I use fear because that's the right word, but I don't know. It's a feeling of smallness. Okay, of feeling small, of feeling bitul,
Okay.
and
Est-ce que ce serait plus proche de humilité dans un sens?
yeah, it is, but yeah, to feel humble, but it's still fear. I wouldn't
Ouais.
say, you know,
Mais quelque
because there
part
is
entre les
another
deux,
word
ouais.
for humble humility. There's bitul is humility, you know. So fear will lead you to humility.
Okay.
What did you say?
C'est craindre. Le bon mot, c'est craindre.
Yeah. So to conclude, we're coming before the month of Rosh Hashanah, and that's where we work on our fear again. We reconnect with our connection to our God. It's the month of repenting and working on that fear that we need in order to feel closer to Him. It's funny because in a way it's a feeling of smallness pushes you away, right? But it's right, because fear, you feel more distance. Love, you feel closer. So in order to feel closer, you kind of have distance yourself, to make yourself smaller in order to feel closer to Him. And we have to remember that it's within us, it's within reach, that we're able to feel that feeling, and that if we're very lucky to reach that level of Yira Ilav, that level where we're completely transparent, we will be gifted with a beautiful gift of love of pleasures that comes from a gift from Hashem. I don't know who experienced it. I don't think I experienced it, but
What?
that love of pleasures, it's a gift where you're completely transparent. You get this, you know, I'm thinking of like an empty cup and like a heart goes inside of it, you know? And we have to remember that the love we could experience is to be passionate is a good thing. It's a very good thing to be passionate, and we have to take our passion and use it for God. Always try to think how we could take our passion and channel it to something good. Think of your passions you have. How can you channel it? And that's how you elevate your love. This is the worldly love, a love we could all access, and it's a very healthy love. And I wish you guys all, because I don't think next week we're going to have a class, but I wish you all a meaningful Rosh Hashanah filled with fear and love of God and passion, and that we should have lots of blessings for the New Year's, a refuah shlema for my grandmother and for anybody else who needs it.
Shana Tova ou Meka.
Oh yes, a